Clearly the Rambam, in documenting the halachot of the Yad HaChazakah, based his rulings upon a statement made by Chazal, recorded in the Talmud Bavli and Yerushalmi, which in turn were based upon the statements recorded in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. However, the Rambam does make nuanced changes, as we shall see in this panel. For example, in the Rambam's linking of tzara'at with the violations of the laws regarding Lashon Hara, he develops a sequence. That sequence is, firstly, the tzara'at attacks the home. Hopefully, the individual will realize and accept the fact that this was a result of wrongdoing and do teshuvah. If not, and the individual persists, then according to the Rambam, it moves into stage 2. That is, the tzara'at affects the personal clothing of the individual. If the individual does not change his or her ways, then the tzara'at attacks the physical body in the form of a skin disease, requiring ultimately banishment from the camp until such time the symptoms of the tzara'at are healed. Well, this is a very logical sequence of events. The laws of tzara'at, as recorded in the Chumash, differ to that of the Rambam. In the Chumash, we have the tzara'at that impacts upon the skin, then the tzara'at that impacts upon clothing, and finally the tzara'at that affects the bricks and mortar of one's home. A second anomaly involves the presentation of information in Sefer Vayikra, and there we are informed of a 3-stage process. When the symptoms of the tzara'at first appear, stage 1 involves a diagnosis. This is done by a Kohen, who, it would be assumed, would have some experience in identifying the lesions of a tzara'at as opposed to other blemishes that appear upon the skin. Stage 2 was the treatment stage, and following the healing of the tzara'at, there was an atonement process, one that is fairly complex and involved. It required shtei tziporim, 2 live birds, a branch from the cedar tree, 8 erez, a clump of scarlet wool, the shni tolat, and fourthly, some ezov, a clump of branches from the hyssop bush. The hyssop and the cedar twig was tied with the scarlet wool, and all 4 items were used in a relatively complex purification procedure. Following the purification, there was the atonement, the offering of a chatat, a sin offering, as well as a korban olah. Of interest is the need for a sin offering for ostensibly a skin disease. If we take a broad survey of the information as presented in Perek Yud Gimel and Yud Daled of Sefer Vayikra, in Perek Yud Gimel, the first 46 pasukim involve the symptoms and diagnosis of the tzara'at of the skin and how that tzara'at was to be treated. Also in Vayikra Perek 13 we have the diagnosis and treatment of a tzara'at that attacks one's clothing. And similarly, in Vayikra Perek 14, we have the diagnosis and the treatment of the tzara'at that was found in one's housing. Take note that this information is recorded in the second half of Vayikra Perek 14. In the first half of this Perek, we have the 33 pasukim that relate to the purification and the atonement procedure of the tzara'at of the skin. And herein lies the anomaly. Each of the 3 forms of the tzara'at required a diagnosis, process, and the treatment. For the skin disease and the clothing, that information is contained in Perek 13. Tzara'at of the bricks and mortar is found in Perek 14. Information regarding the purification, the tahara, and the atonement, the bringing of the korbanot, while according to the text applies only to the tzara'at of the skin, yet this information is moved into Perek 14 and placed between the tzara'at of the clothing and the tzara'at involving the bricks and mortar of one's housing. And it is this anomaly that the Rebbe will address in this Sikha to Parshat Tazriyah.